About a year ago, someone gave me a book titled The Comfort Crisis. It was a New York Times bestseller, came out a couple years ago. I finally gave it a read, and the author, Michael Easter, in the book, he makes the claim that we are drowning in comfort. And he uses a phrase in the beginning of the book called comfort creep. And he makes the case that we increasingly, of course, live more comfortable lives. And as we live more comfortable lives, our expectation for comfort goes up and it kind of creeps in. We don't really realize that it's happening. And when those expectations for comfort aren't met, we end up thinking that life is harder than it really is. So somebody who lived 100 years ago, if they were to come and live your life for just one day even, or my life for one day, they would just be blown away with the ease and comfort and the luxury. We got in a little tussle at the rectory the other day with like someone noticed that the thermostat, well, I'm not going to say who, like they felt like it was 74 instead of 73, right? It's like, who turned it down? The information at our fingertips, the luxury of our food, the ease of access of our food. We by far live in the most wealthiest, luxurious time in the course of any other time in human history. And it's not even close. And because of this comfort creep, he mentions how we're increasingly conditioned to think that struggle is a bad thing. And that struggle is something to be avoided at all costs. And a result of all this, he says, of drowning in comfort, he says it's making us weaker, it's making us less happy, and it's making us less human. I was thinking about all that this week as we take a break from ordinary time. It's a unique weekend here in that June 29th falls on a Sunday. The last time June 29th fell on a Sunday was 11 years ago. June 29th is the solemnity of the saints Peter and Paul. So we pause from ordinary time and we uplift two men, Peter and Paul, who experienced a lot of struggle in their life. And I just want to make 2 points from their life about struggle that really is the biblical worldview of struggle, which we really need to lean into in this time of comfort creep or this time of comfort crisis. And the first is this: just because you're struggling, it doesn't mean something's necessarily wrong with you. Just because you're struggling, it doesn't mean something's necessarily wrong with you. There's a guy, Robin Phillips, he writes for a number of publications I subscribe to, Salvo, Touchstone, and last month's publication of Salvo magazine, he says this: children feel great pressure to be happy. You can translate adults here for children, but he's speaking about children. Children feel great pressure to be happy. And just think of how influencers online present just the curated lives, seemingly their lives free of struggle, things airbrushed. Okay, so of course, children feel great pressure to be happy. He says, over time, this solidifies the assumption that a difficult life necessarily signals abnormality or dysfunction. Thus, when the children are not happy or they do encounter difficulty in their life, it is easy for them to lapse into depression and assume that something must be wrong with them. I think this is a big problem today. And it's not reality. And it's not biblical. We think that struggle or hardships aren't normal. And there's something to be avoided, that they're a bad thing. See, Peter and Paul, two saints, two men we hold up today, they struggled a lot. Imprisonment, being beaten. Paul talked about the fact that 3 times on just his travel, he was shipwrecked, being tortured, rejected, abandoned. Paul, one time in one of his letters, he's writing to the fact, and he just shares the fact that he experiences a lot of weight and stress and anxiety with the responsibility that he feels for the other churches around. Struggle. Ultimately, Peter was crucified upside down, and Paul had his head cut off. St. Paul, in his letter to the Romans at one point, kind of summing up the biblical view of struggle, he says, we glory in struggle. We glory in sacrifice and suffering, because we know that hardship and sufferings produces perseverance, and perseverance, character, and character, hope. In other words, I do become less happy and weaker and less human if I'm never experiencing hardship and struggles. So if you're struggling right now, and you're just, know that it doesn't necessarily mean that something's wrong with you. That needs to be heard. I felt yesterday given this homily that some people, like, they were just being lifted from some burdens by just even hearing that reality, the biblical worldview. Because we take in the comfort crisis or the comfort creep, and then it becomes, okay, I'm going through this difficulty in life or in the season, in my marriage or in my family, with my kids, in school or whatever it is. I'm not happy right now, so I must have this big dysfunction about me. That there must be some big thing that's wrong with me. It might just be that struggle and hardship are normal. And not only are they normal, it's actually a thing to be embraced and lean into. That's the biblical worldview. You know, I had lunch with someone on Thursday, and I was running some of this stuff by them and my homily thoughts for this weekend, and he was telling me about a study or this big experiment that was done in the early 90s in Arizona. Scientists ran this, they created this biosphere. You might have heard about it, early 90s, this huge biosphere. And it was this sealed environment trying to mimic the Earth's atmosphere. And they planted trees inside this biosphere, and the trees grew like they just took off. Crazy heights. But every one of those trees ended up collapsing under its own weight. Why? Because there was no wind in the biosphere. The trees never experienced any resistance. And so they were incredibly weak. They took off in growth, but they ended up collapsing under their own weight. They didn't have a chance to develop the strength that was needed to stand. So, question for us. Where maybe in my life am I expecting ease when what I really need is strength? Like, where have I assumed that struggle means that there's something wrong with me here? I'm struggling in this aspect or this aspect of my life. Man, there must be something wrong with me here. Like, when it might just be that this is the very place that God wants me and is having me grow right now. You're a young parent, you got kids, you're in the thick of things with kids running around. The daily grind, the exhaustion. Maybe what I need is not easier days, but rather strength and perseverance for the sacrificial love that's needed as a parent in this season of my life. Or maybe I'm just undergoing a season of suffering in my life, and I'm praying that this cross be taken away. Lord, take this cross away. Like, I can't handle it. It's too heavy. Take this cross away. But maybe I just need strength and endurance. And this is the cross that the Lord just wants for me right now. Paul, in his second letter to Timothy, we hear in our second reading today, he just says how he's been poured out like a libation. He's reached the end of his life. He's just sacrificed. He's poured it all out. And he says what? The Lord stood by me and gave me strength. In the midst of all the hardships, in the midst of all the sufferings, the shipwreck, the being beaten, the Lord stood by me and he gave me strength. And secondly, more brief here, the other point to make here from Peter and Paul, again, the biblical view of struggle is needing to have trust in the struggle. The first reading that we have, the church gives us for Peter and Paul, Acts chapter 12, it really stands as a great icon for all the suffering and hardships of Peter and Paul in their whole life. And it's when Peter, he's in prison, and we heard that Herod just cut James's head off, and now Peter's waiting a trial to meet Herod the next day. And it says that Peter is what? He's wrapped in double chains. 16 soldiers are guarding him. And it says one interesting point. The reading says Peter was sleeping. Peter was sleeping. That's not Peter being lazy in the struggle, in the hardship. That's him trusting. I'm just going to bed. That's a man who internalized the disposition and who learned to say, thy will be done. I don't get this. I don't like this hardship right now in this season of my life, this struggle, this suffering, but thy will be done, and I'm just going to sleep because I'm trusting. And so the question for us is maybe where do I feel chained, perhaps double chained this morning? Stress, uncertainty, fear, all caused by just struggle and hardship, all those things. But where am I trying to, in the midst of the struggle, trying to control everything? Or can I just like Peter say, Lord, I trust you enough that I'm going to rest here. I'm going to sleep. And the wild thing about the account is that as Peter is all chained up, God does intervene. He sends an angel to break the chains, to walk right through the guards. And he says, the Lord has rescued me from the hand of Herod. And so I end with this. Go back to the Robin Phillips quote. When he said that people today struggle, they often assume something's wrong with them, broken, dysfunction. I must have this big dysfunction about me if I'm struggling. Here's the good news of the gospel. There is something dysfunctional about you. There is something broken about you and me. But the good news of the gospel is you're not broken because you struggle. You're broken because of the condition of sin. And we need someone from the outside to come in and rescue us and break the chains and to redeem us. And God, if you will, left the comfort, sent his son to enter into the struggle and the hardship, to redeem struggle and hardship, and to redeem us. So stop avoiding hard things. That's ultimately the conclusion this guy makes in the book. He says, actually do more hard things in the midst of the comfort crisis and the comfort creep. Do more hard things. Embrace struggle. That's where Christ wants to meet you. And that's the spot saints are made.